I'd like to welcome you to this meeting of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee taking place tonight on the 5th of October 2023. I'd like to remind you that it's being live streamed and recorded. And before, I'd like to go into apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apology from Councillor Duffin and Councillor Paul Arnold, who's substituting this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold, and welcome. The minutes of the previous meeting, I'd like to move that the minutes of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on the 11th of July 2023 are approved as a true record. Are there any comments about the accuracy of the minutes? Councillor Wall.
Thank you. I find the minutes really confusing, in that we've got all of the bullets, how they're written now, and it's not assigned to anybody, and the actions underneath. So you have to go through the minutes and then line them up. So you've got bullet points at the top and numbers at the actions. So you can't find out where one correlates with the other. And so I've found it really quite confusing to follow the process. So, and I'm not sure that we've had. I just find it really difficult to follow. Yeah, if you could match it up somehow so that I don't have to read it all. Thanks. Well, I want to read it, but.
Yes, thank you. If we look at the actions, I'm really disappointed that actually I haven't seen basically any of these actions carried out. So we haven't had updates on the future sale of assets. I haven't had anything from Jonathan Wilson about the violence against women funding point away and details about that we asked for. We haven't had an update on the government funding for the Just Stop Oil demonstrations. Yeah, and I don't know, we've had a date on which a report can be presented, and clearly we haven't got a report on the reserve strategy that was going to be presented to this committee. So either we look at actions or we don't.
Thank you for that, Councillor Morris-Cook. And Councillor Wall?
And we haven't had updates from Jonathan Wilson on the HRA fire safety project and the
I didn't turn
and
over.
the right to buy receipts applications and what we're going to be able to do with that money for future years. So as I say, it's okay having actions, but we do need to make sure that we get those written reports in between the two meetings. Thank you.
Go on.
And with the greatest respect, this was held on the 11th of July, so there's been sufficient time to actually reply to members, or at least say, look, I haven't forgotten, I'm still gathering the data, but I would expect it since the 11th of July to have had an update on some of it. I think it's poor.
And Jonathan Wilson's not in the room, but Stephen Mayer is, and he was going to look at the way that we review parking charges.
Yes, that's
and
right.
that we was going to look at if some areas that want to come out can come out, and those that want to go in should be added in, and that the cost benefit would be able to correlate. So if we could have a written update on that, please. Thank you.
I'll pick up all of the issues. I did follow up on the ones I was anticipating colleagues would have come back direct, but leave them all with me and I will follow them all up and come back to you on them. Is that all right, Chair?
Yeah, thank you. Just all the issues that have been raised by Councillor Morris-Cook and Councillor Wall, I wonder if we could have just as soon as possible an update on when we're going to be hearing back from them. Are any of them going to come onto future work? Some of the items mentioned will be, some will just be reports sent out by email, some will be things that need to be going on the work programme for future meetings. So if we could know each of the actions, is it coming in as a report via email, is it a briefing note, or is it coming to, the next committee, or, Okay, thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else, anything about the minutes? No? Okay, thank you very much. Items of urgent business. I've not been informed of any items of urgent business. And declarations of interest. Anyone interested in the meeting? We've all got interest. I'd like to move on to the first major item, the 2023 to 24 Q1 forecast revenue and capital outturn. And I know this is a report for Jonathan Wilson, but Stephen Mayer is going to step in to deliver it. Thank you.
So this is Q1, obviously at the end of June. It's revenue and capital. I'll go through, pick out the highlights, and then please, obviously, any questions. So you can see on the first page, bottom right-hand corner, the council is forecasting a slight underspend in total, £1 million there. And you can see in the right-hand column, it's made up of two features. One is the directorate position at the top, and one is then Treasury halfway down. A figure in brackets is a credit, that's good news. A figure without brackets.
It's complete opposite to normal life.
All right.
It really throws me.
In the world of local authorities, credits, brackets are good things and debits are not. Overleaf, just at a highlight level, the HRA is forecasting a balanced position. The dedicated schools grant is forecasting a balanced position, which, just for further information, is reasonably unusual and a very good place for Thurrock to be. Public health likewise, and some slippage on the capital programme. Then on page 16 on my document, paragraph 3.1, table 1, that gives you broken down by service area. Probably, again, look at the right-hand column, I would suggest, and clearly there are three areas that are facing a significant overspend at that point in time. So you have children's services, HROD and transformation and place. Clearly there are others, but as you'll appreciate, the figures do fluctuate month on month. And then the way the report is formatted, overleaf again, 3.2 as an example, gives you some narrative on each departmental area. So adults, by way of example, is underspending mostly in the place of external placements. So that's really good work by colleagues, really keeping a grip on that there. Moving along, it's the placements in children's, 3.3 that are delivering the overspend. As I'm sure you fully understand, you can soon rack up a very significant overspend with children. You get some special cases, they can be particularly expensive. The other significant one, 3.6, HROD and transformation. The big figure there is in paragraph 3.6.2, and that's nearly £1 million on ICT budgets. The issue is that many years ago, when you were investing in IT, you had a physical asset. You had a big server in a room, a lot of computers in a room. Nowadays, ICT is a service, so you buy it from Microsoft or Google or wherever. It's like electricity, it's like gas. You cannot capitalise expenditure if you don't have an asset. We have continued to capitalise, that is now being corrected, so we get an issue while we resolve that matter. The other significant one is place, which is 3.8.4, principally in the property budget. Also other areas. That is more of a mix of issues that you can see there, team costs, running costs, and the Tameside complex. The rest do have variances, but they are not quite as material. And moving on through the report, the Treasury in table 13 gives you a breakdown of the various Treasury variances, which you would expect. The big one is the investment income, where the Council has continued to receive during this year some investment income as we, on the next paper, seek to dispose of the investments. Paragraph 5.1 shows you the HRA, which, as you can see, is coming down to a projected zero balance there. The DSG, likewise, just picking up on the point I made before, DSG is becoming an increasingly issue across many councils. The DFE are particularly looking at this area because there are some councils with very, very significant overspends in the tens of millions. You're in a very good place here with a very slight overspend projected to come to zero. That's not unusual, but not many councils are in that place. The capital programme then breaks down for you, table 18, on what the appendices do at the back. They give you every capital scheme line by line, and if there's any queries on those, I'll obviously take them away and come back. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And as with every other time I've chaired this, unlimited questions. We're only called out you know, sparingly to come to these committees, so we're going to sort of ask as many questions as we want. So who'd like to go first with questions? Yep, Councillor Morris-Cook.
Sorry. On the recommendations, I just wanted to go to that because it does talk 1.2. It says that directors with significant adverse variances will continue to review the directorate budgets and identify mitigating actions. It would be really, really helpful, I think, for us to identify, because I know, like, in the public realm, we were 345,000 not achieved, but they've identified 474, of which 472 has been achieved. I think it would be very helpful, future when we're having this, to actually itemise by the directorate what their mitigations are, because, you know, with the greatest respect, some might actually cover most of their overspend, which would change the whole dynamics and the conversation.
Not a problem, we can do that. Some do cover their overspends, as you've alluded to. What this is about is we are here on the 30th of June. We require directors to take action in the next period to address it. But if they know what action they're going to take, we can certainly set that out for you, yeah.
Yeah, then 3.3.5, where we talk about the unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, we've been advised there that there is a higher rate coming. What effect would that have? Because clearly, you know, currently there's an overspend, but if that is going to be balanced off with the higher rate that the Home Office is saying, again, that's mitigating. That would be an interesting. That would have been an interesting comparison to have shown. 3.9.2. Whilst it's fantastic news for the public realm that the enforcement team have just won an award, which they have, I think it's very disappointing to see that we've got an under-recovery on the penalty notices. So obviously we are issuing them, but what we're not doing, and we're not really on point with, is actually getting the money back in. And you know, and obviously they've been given some additional powers now, which is amazing and really good. And we're seeing the effects of that with antisocial behaviour theoretically coming down. But I think it would be we need to really probably understand what the effect of that and what's being done by the debt recovery, which I think is Kevin Tuttle, is it? That his team, who I must say and put on record, I really appreciate the way that they are dealing with debt, because it is very difficult times for people, but it's being done with humanity and empathy, and really what can we do rather than going after people. So I've had, not personally, but for a resident, had quite a lot of dealings, and I've been very, very impressed with how they're dealing with this and how they're trying to support residents. But, you know, clearly every penny counts, doesn't it? So, you know, 137,000 is not to be sniffed at, is it?
I think the challenge for them is the staffing, but I'll certainly take back your comments and we'll get you a note.
I think they're looking at increasing that, because it's a way it's generating income, which is what we've got to look at, isn't it?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for your welcome to this committee. It's my first. It's a very detailed report, and there's a lot of work gone into it, and we'd like to thank, obviously, all the officers. But we're here to challenge and to. And I would also like to support Councillor Morris-Cook's comments. I also have had a lot of interaction with our financial inclusion team, and they do some amazing work for our residents. Sorry, I've lost my question, Chair. If I can come back.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few, and I think some of them you'll probably want to take away and come back with, because you might not have the figures to hand. So, page 15, 2.1, council tax increase, including hardship fund of 0.616. How much of this has been used so far this year? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'll get you the figure and let you.
Shame that's have 9.9, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. 3.3.3, this is more a general statement, and I think something that either we need to take up or more appropriate Overview and Scrutiny Committee take up, or indeed the Cabinet member. So we know that there is the cost of children's social care has been climbing massively, probably much faster than adult social care in certain areas. This really needs to become something that's tackled nationally, like we tackled or tried to tackle the adult social care. I'm not talking about adding yet another precept on to council tax to help fund this, because whichever way round you look at it, precept or otherwise, it's still an increase. But I think not just at local authority level, this needs to be at regional level as well, be taken up as a massive national issue, because I can nearly guarantee there will be people out in Thurrock wanting to know where their money is going and don't realise that we've got, 10 high-cost placements, of £5.3 million, which is significant, and then other increasing pressures as well of ongoing need from residents for this. This is not just a want, this is a need aspect. So I think there needs to be a much bigger conversation about that funding level right across the country, and I think we all need to start leading from it at council level. So I think it's something for, if you have a chairs meeting or wherever, to see where that would sit properly. If it sits here, great. If it doesn't sit here, it sits in children's, fine. Or if it sits with a cabinet member, to pass it on to cabinet member. I'll tell you what I need to do is either increase my writing or get much better glasses. So 3.3.4 is an overspend, the Bright Future Prevention Service. Absolutely fantastic thing that we do. To me, somewhere along the line, I'd like to see a link of how does that help us save elsewhere. So we all know when children go into care, it costs the local authority a huge amount of money. More importantly, it's a massive impact on that child. If this is preventing 20, 30, 50, 100, 200, I really don't care how many children it's having a positive effect on. Let's have a little bit more detail of how that, not just for the savings, but also the impact on the children. Councillor Morris Cook actually asked the same question that I was going to ask on.
That's really scary for
me. Isn't it? On unaccompanied asylum seeker children, homeschool transport ones, someone's giving me an update on that one. It's a small amount, but literally every little helps. Page 20, 3.4.3. Other pressures include postage costs and subscriptions to professional bodies and various teams. This seems to be a year-on-year thing of postage. I know postage goes up every year, but we seem to be sending out more and more at a time when we're sort of asking residents to become more and more digitally enabled and get everything electronic. So, yeah, I think it's 25,000 in total, but these are little things. No, I've already asked that one somewhere else. Page 24, 3.84 on the council offices. We've obviously lost the tenant, CCG. I can only assume that the back part of the old building should now be classed as completely empty. Can we? And I've raised this before elsewhere. If we've got empty offices, I think it's section 44A with the rating regs, we can get it temporarily taken out of rating, which then drives down your rate bill. Excellent, thank you. A follow-on question from Councillor Morris Cook's one in relation to the under recovery on penalty charges. This has been a problem for years. It was my portfolio before. what happens? So we're not collecting very much now. We start collecting, say, in 3 months, 4 months' time. How does that impact? I mean, obviously, we start getting money back in, but if we've got a deficit of collection that's going to come in at some point, it's more likely to come into the following year. Will that then be dragged back, or just show us excess next year? Because the concern will be, if we're all sitting here this point next year, we see a massive, income stream, because all it is collecting previous year's debt.
Right. As a general principle across the whole piece, it should be accounted for in the year in which it is due. The issue will be, as I'm sure you're very familiar, the longer you leave it, the less and less you recover. It's harder to. The only way to recover debt is be straight on the case immediately afterwards. That's not the only way, but it's the best way. The longer you leave it, the less debt will actually collect. But it should be accounted for in the year it's due.
As someone who used to do that for a living, 100%. 3.10.3, 0.017 income shortfall registrars due to the reduction in the number of ceremonies that the service has been able to accommodate. I've really struggled with that. We've built a new office around that, with one of the big things saying we can do more. We can do more of these services. We've got bits that we can hire out, yet we've got a shortfall. I'd like to know why we're not doing as many services. Is that fewer people actually wanting to get married and so on, or is it more... a good few people have been married here, have they not, Councillor Arnold?
Certainly have, and I do actually remember going back a little bit over a year, there was some talk about actually maybe trying to recruit some kind of wedding planner or something that actually income generates to actually look at the whole service. Obviously it's a special day for many, but it's like there's income streams there which can be explored. So I don't know if that's actually got any legs behind it at the minute. I don't know if that's been investigated.
Colleagues have spoken to me about it. I'd have to get the detail for you, and I will come back. But yes, it's been in other places as well. It can earn a reasonable amount of income. Yeah.
Because I know when I was married there, I was actually one of the first, and there were gaping holes. Actually, it was apparent that we actually had to be very proactive in actually providing things that we thought we needed, when really someone there should have actually been doing that for us.
Yeah, thank you. Page 29. Energy costs continue to fluctuate, impacting corporate landlord services. I thought we used to enter into a contract every 5 years to bulk buy. And we'd bulk buy huge amounts because a lot of it is, perhaps for myself. But we end up buying in bulk. So we have one fixed rate, and that, irrespective of where it fluctuates, we pay more when it went down back in the olden days, but now it's gone up. We would end up with that steady stream. Can you explain why the fluctuations are having an effect, if that's what we were doing?
What I would suggest on that, if that is happening, then that should not be happening if we have a contract as you are describing, because you buy forward, you buy at a point in time, and you win some, you lose some, but as an average it works out. I would have to follow up, but I imagine, therefore, the Council is not in the position you are describing, but you may well know better than me.
I can certainly remember having the reports to Cabinet repeatedly and asking the questions about metered electricity and so on, and be told that pretty much a lot of the stuff we do, we guess, because it's not metered.
I'm sure you're aware, but it's a really major issue a year or two ago when energy prices, for all the international reasons, were really taking off, and people were stepping in, locking in. Some were successful, some locked in at the wrong time. I will certainly follow it up, because it shouldn't be an issue if we have the arrangements you are describing.
Thank you, Chair. That's it. That's it. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Dedrill. Councillor Polly, you'd like to come back in?
Thank you for your patience there, Chair. So on page 28, on investment income 3.15.5, it says additional level of investment income of 4.6 million above the budget is predicted. This is largely linked to one Pacific investment. I was just wondering, I have a recollection at full council we actually took a vote and agreed to put in non-executive directors at a particular one of our companies that we were. That was my question. I just didn't know whether that was like I just want, that was my question, if that was a positive outcome of an action that we'd taken. I was just asking. Thank you.
I think what's happened with investment income generally is the council took at the time a quite sensible and prudent approach to strip a lot of this out of its budget because of the situation it was in, on the assumption the investments would be sold. What we have found is that some of it has continued to come in because some of the sales haven't happened at the original estimated time. But I'll follow up the specific for you and come back.
Councillor Polly. Councillor Worrell.
Thank you. Right, so I may be a little bit all over the place for this because I've got a lot to ask. So the financial accounts for 2020 and to 2021, these are still open, aren't they? Do we have any idea when we're going to finally put this to bed and the following years after that? Because I kind of feel like we're sitting on what could be a whole load more of debt.
Exactly.
And we need to exactly know where we are because we're already, having all sorts of trouble trying to meet and balance budgets when we could have a whole load more to so I'll ask you one at a time so that you can answer.
You're totally correct. Until you've got a set of accounts, you haven't signed off, audited, approved and completely delivered, you haven't got a straight edge. And the risk is, as you describe, it might be debt, it might be misaccounting. I'm not saying it is, it could be other things as well. Our work with the auditors at the moment is we have sought that the 2021 be signed off by January 24. They have indicated that might be a challenge and it might be March 24. And at that point then, they will step in and start to do the next set of accounts, which will take quite a while. Part of the reason it takes this amount of time is because of the complexity of Thurrock's investments. They are requiring very significant technical papers off the council. All of those technical papers have been supplied and we are awaiting responses from them. So the other reason it is taking a particular amount of time is because of the situation that Thurrock is in. They are enormously under, not pressure, but under scrutiny. So not... In a routine situation, you get the accounts, the partner will sign them off, internal review, and then it will move forward. Thurrock is not alone in this, but a lot of things then go to a risk partner. There is the potential that FRC might even investigate the audit, not investigate the council, but investigate the auditor's work of that. What that leads to is they become more and more risk averse. They spend more and more time verifying evidence, getting their files together, and all of that takes an inordinate amount of time. There is, however, a national issue. So this is not Thurrock alone. This is many, many councils have 2 or 3 years sets of accounts outstanding. So just to be aware, and we will be bringing a paper through to Cabinet shortly, but this is a big national issue. There are discussions ongoing to suggest that with DLUC make legislation. I'll have to check out the detail for you, but effectively we draw a line as a sector across accounts, working fully with the auditors, and perhaps, and this is all subjective and to be confirmed, the auditors focus perhaps on the major balances, give you an opinion on the major balances, and everybody accepts it isn't quite what it was always going to be, but you draw a line. The risk with that is that you haven't got a fully audited set of accounts, but you can at least move forward, because what you've got is an awful lot of finance people across the whole country looking back 2, 3, 4 years rather than looking forward and trying to help councils develop resilience, etc. So it's not quite an ideal position. I will bring you a paper, but that's more of a national discussion, but hopefully that's helpful. But the earliest, in my view, you're going to get the latest outstanding set of accounts will be March 24, subject to DLUC issuing an edict in legislation requiring a sign-off. But I'll bring you a full paper on that.
Go on.
It's on this, yeah. How can we're sitting here saying that we've got potentially, with the last period an underspend, which is great. We really aren't sure if that is true because of the previous accounts pulling forward. How can we, because clearly, we are in absolute crisis with finances due to the poor investments that were made by the previous sort of administration. However, we've got to look to try and work with the teams to bring a budget in that's going to take 18 million out. How confident are we that that is the right figure and it isn't 25 million, 30 million, or is it 10 million? And then are we cutting things so tight because we've really got to try and get a grip on it, and actually didn't need to go that hard? Does that make sense? I actually understand what you're saying, and clearly you've come in after the effect, and it's years and years of sort of chaos, but we're going to be paying this price for years to come, and as you say, until we know where we are, it's really hard to understand where we need to go, and that's my concern, because we won't be talking hundreds of pounds or maybe thousands. It would be millions.
In just picking up the various points, do correct me if I've missed anything. In terms of is this true, it is absolutely true and correct based upon the information that we have at the moment in this financial year. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. Colleagues are putting a lot of effort into this. No. However, you are correct. So I don't think it's so much a risk that this isn't true, but it's a risk that something pops out of the 2021 accounts and has an impact that rolls forward, etc. So I don't disagree with that at all. As to the value, we'll pick it up in the next paper, no doubt, but you are going to make a loss on your investments of some significance. I'm just being cautious in commercial issues. So, quite frankly, whether it was 18 million or 28 million, you would have to make very, very significant revenue savings. The logic for the 18 million is, I believe the council said 15 million when it produced the budget. The commissioners directed that there had to be further savings. Therefore, we took a reasoned judgment and increased it by that amount of money. But it is not going to be the case that you have less to save. You are going to have to save significant amounts of money for a long period. Picking up your last point, and this is not unique to Thurrock, this is at least 5 years before this council can become financially sustainable, if not longer, in my personal view, from experience elsewhere. So nobody is trying to make you make savings that you would look back in the future and say, we didn't have to, it should have been 8 million. We are a long, long way away from that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, and that's the way that we should have this. If people have got something to say on any question, I think we best chip in. Saves us going over stuff twice. So for the capital programme, and it sort of doubles back onto what you've just said, and it says the HRA capital programme remains on track for delivery. I think it's fair to mention that actually it remains on track is because we've cancelled. Unless we're already in that contract, we will not be starting any new capital programmes, will we? So it will remain on track because there's no new capital programmes coming on board unless we're already within contract or started. Is that right? I don't mean house building, I mean like our big...
No, the position is, just for other colleagues' information, is that HMT for councils in this situation will not authorise any borrowing by the council that is for anything other than refinancing debt.
Not even for housing.
You cannot borrow to create any new capital schemes, full stop. Now, I have no doubt that will develop, but I equally have no doubt they will want a full business case, and this will not just be officers within the council reviewing this, this will be DLUC reviewing it, this will be HMT reviewing it. So I have to certify that we are not borrowing to spend. The commissioners also have to certify that the council is not borrowing to spend when we have to borrow to refinance a loan, and it is quite a tortuous process to go. So what you are describing is exactly the situation. It may change, but at the moment it will not change.
So to come back on that, do you think, so we've got right to buy receipts, haven't we, that are sitting there, and the interest accrued on them. Is there a good business case that we could be using those right to buy, but we can only use, is it 40% of the down payment for bid the right to buy, and we would have to borrow on the 60%? Is that just what is the risk to our right to buys, or are government likely to say you can use it to pay down debt? Are they like, could we do that, or can we get special circumstances because it is the HRA, because we're going to be in dire if people keep buying houses and we can't build or buy enough?
I'm conscious we're in a public forum, but it's a very good point that you make, and we are working with DLUC, as a few other councils are, to explore longer term options to help and assist councils in the longer term. They will not, in my view, help in the short term, because they want to see councils doing absolutely everything that they can themselves. Right, to buy receipts will be a very good case to make to government to say, I really don't know what government does, but I assume they don't budget to receive these back, and therefore could we be appropriately creative with appropriate legislation to do so, if you get my drift.
Okay, thank you.
Would anyone else like to come in?
Can we have an adjournment?
Can we just have an adjournment for 5 minutes,
Yes.
please?
Okay, thank you. We're back in session. Thank you for that. Councillor
Does
Ward,
anybody else want to ask anything before I carry on? No?
carry on.
Thank you.
You've got your stride back.
I have, yeah. So, the underspending community development on 3.2.5, and it says that they've got an underspend of 0.41 million, and they're going to hit their target. I am a little bit concerned that they're hitting their target, but we've stripped away most of their money, you know, so like we've shutting libraries down to 2 days a week at risk of losing them. So whilst we read things in here and it sounds like it might be a bit of a good news story, it's absolutely a catastrophe that we are, you know, hubs, libraries are really at risk. And I just wonder if are we making best use of any money that's coming in from external sources? I understand that there's like money that was given, it sits in the Community Development Fund, the Community Development, Economic Development that came in from government, that was like an uplift from coming out of the EU, but it sits over in the Economic Development. I can't think of what the SPF funding is, it, or something like that. So there's a pot of money. And I just wonder, are we making best use of that to make sure that we're not giving up on, you know, our libraries and hubs before we need to?
That I will have a conversation with Ian Wake and come back to you on that, but I know Ian is all over his figures, so I'm very confident that he will be making best use, but I will have to check the detail for you and come.
Just a quick one. Home to school transport had quite a significant reduction in their budget this year, and we're now in October. Do we know if they realised that everything, if we had any update about that? How deep was everything? Did every child get to school that needed to go?
I don't know operationally if children go to school. Financially, we are doing an update at the moment. In fact, I will have month 5 in my inbox when the meeting finishes, but I will have to check with colleagues. In
so we're almost talking tonight in backwards, aren't we? Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, to do this? And ICT 3.6, ICT had $1 million overspend. Is that right? Yeah. For, you know, when everybody else is like cutting to the bone, and ICT is at $1 million overspend.
The reason is, as referenced earlier, the council, what it's done in the past is invested in ICT for all the right reasons, I'm sure, but it has capitalised that expenditure, so charged it to the capital programme. It cannot do that because most IT expenditure now is not a physical asset, it's a service, it comes through the ether. So we cannot continue in that way. Quite frankly, we should have stopped several years ago. The auditors have seen this, they're equally on the case, so we're not drawing a stop to something immediately because there might be a big service impact. So the hit then comes to revenue, but it needs to be addressed.
And commissioners, they're comfortable with that, you know, like.
They're absolutely totally comfortable with the accounting because the accounting is now correct. The consequence is there is £1 million overspend, which colleagues, going back to the recommendation 1.2, need to find ways of mitigating.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I'm just talking about the intervention and commissioners' costs, and, you know, just when we're stacking up against everything, you know, is everything being done that is possible to make sure that we don't spend more than we have to on what needs to be done? For, you know, or is 6 million about the going rate for the next 5 years, and we should be building that in the budget?
Absolutely the case. So we have the various panels that you'll know about, the strategic approval panel, etc. That is having a positive financial impact. There is quite a significant number of business cases turned down, and they are all absolutely challenged. That therefore brings a financial benefit. Just to be totally clear, the Commissioner's element of this is the 300,000 at the bottom. I'm sure you see that in the table. But as a total expenditure, it costs a lot of money to get out of a situation like you are in at the moment. And it will cost many millions of pounds. But colleagues are very conscious of this. Equally, doing some of this, as you will see on the next paper, can then be used to offset rather more expensive advisors elsewhere. The thing for the future, which I'm sure you're totally aware of, sometimes it is worth investing in certain services to avoid the potential consequence of what has happened here. So you might spend some money in the short term, but you will see tremendous financial benefits. Now, you won't see it as a saving, but you'll see it as something that doesn't happen, as perhaps has happened here, if perhaps there had been a little bit more investment in certain areas. So in some cases you have to spend, and you will be spending significantly for several years, because you've got to get out of this situation.
Thank you. And I have to ask that because, you know, residents will literally be looking in on us and thinking, well, why is no one questioning the fact that there's £6 million going out on commissioners and buying in services when we're saying to them, tighten your belts and here comes another 10% rise for you. So,
buses and this.
So has anybody, I want to ask a couple of questions on the general fund chart. So do you mind, literally, they're really important ones, but only quick.
Yeah, go on.
Is that all right?
Keep going, and then
Thank
afterwards I'll be bringing in Councillor Polly, then back to Councillor Morris-Cook. I'm doing it as hands indicate.
So on the capital fund, you know, starting on page 41, on page 43, it says pupil referral unit relocation, 300,000. Has the pupil referral unit even moved? Because I thought it was at Jack Lobley School and had been there for some years. So I don't know why we've got £300,000 on a relocation of the PRU in this in public realm. And then I see that same £300,000 with a D0020 code next to it, but again it's in children and education, and they're claiming pupil referral unit relocation for 300,000.
That's, I think you find one's by directorate, one's by portfolio.
Oh, okay.
They're both the same. They add up to the same figures at the end.
Oh, okay.
They're shown.
Oh, okay. Thank you. But have we had a? Oh, so it's two different reports.
It's split differently.
I wish they'd write it across the top.
One cast by director and one cast
By portfolio, but the figures are the same at the end. They add up to the same figures.
Got
I thought that earlier. And I
was like, why am I looking at the same stuff? But has the pupil referral unit moved and nobody noticed?
I do not know.
Thank you. And I have got a couple of other ones that I wanted to talk. I think that we're spending a great deal of money from the HRA on garages that we don't need to be spending anymore. I'm sure that we could see that better spent. So I think that maybe somebody in housing needs to have a look at that. And what is the difference between the Tilbury Towns Fund accelerated funding and then Tilbury Towns Fund and Grays Towns Fund normal spends? What's the difference between accelerated and normal spend?
Not the specifics of the town funds, but accelerated spend will be, as its name implies, additional funding, spending it quicker to achieve a particular purpose. I'll have to find out for you.
Yeah, because what we have a trouble with is actually when we ask, what are you spending our money on? And it says that there's been a great deal of money spent on Civic Square. Well, I can't see one improvement in Civic Square, and I walk it 3 times a day. So, you know, I just don't know, and it's not clear. Whilst it's nice to have a list of where we're spending all of our money, I think that we need to also, you know, there has to be a way of us seeing exactly what's coming out of this, because, like, this is just a list of projects that don't really mean anything.
Yeah, this is to show you the financial position. What you're really looking at is joined up financial and performance report. That will take some considerable doing. But yes.
Yeah, thank you. All right then, but yeah, there is stuff in there that I just think is a little bit, you know, should we be even spending this money when we're looking at other places when we're absolutely cutting to the bone, like, yeah. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you. Councillor Polly.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just going back to Councillor Worrell's point on the ICT, as was mentioned earlier about the unknowns in the unfinished accounts, would that be an example where we're not misaccounting, we're just putting it in the wrong column, so it's coming through the window rather than go out through the door, going back to debits and credits?
That is an example of money coming through the wrong door, the wrong place, yes. That is not something that will come through the audit of the accounts, because the council itself has found this, but is an example of incorrect accounting, yes.
Carry on.
Sorry, and I would just like to add that at every committee I attend, whether it be full council, whether it be planning, whether it be this tonight, we all have issues with the ICT. So that,
It's not worth $1 million.
Well, that's $1 million overspend. Yeah. So that does give me a great concern as well. How are we going to put it right when we're already investing that amount of money and we still can't get public gallery? We hit like the acoustics right, or microphones working in full council.
I'll have to speak to my colleague who deals with that, but I will pass the message on certainly. Yeah.
Before I come to Councillor Morris-Cook, I want to bring in a rule that you all stop looking apologetic when you want to carry on your questioning and saying, I'm really sorry, Chair, can I carry on? Please, just carry on as long as you want. And just carry on, and then as soon as you finish your stream of questions, I'll go to someone else, and as you put your hand up. And the other good thing is, as you're asking, I've got a packed agenda, and I'm ticking off all the questions I would have asked as well, so I'm going to be reduced to bare bones by the end, so just please keep going on, okay?
Okay, thank you. Just on the planned works, we've got works to council car parks and pay and display machines. We've got a couple of them up for sale. So I'm just a bit concerned. Are we spending money that actually they're not going to be carried on as car parks? It just seems a little bit of...
We absolutely should not be spending money on something we are selling.
No, and I'm just concerned because it doesn't detail where it is, but it might be something to look at.
Would you mind just telling me which page you're on, and I will...
Sorry, it's 43, top of the page.
I totally appreciate the point. I will follow up and make sure that...
Yeah, it might be somewhere completely different, but it doesn't detail. And one that really concerns me is projects on hold. We've got one, principal bridge inspections and remedial works. Whereas in the capital spend, we've got several where bridge repair and strengthening, one at Coalhouse Fort, but it doesn't particularly say where this is, but I would be concerned that that is a possible safety issue, and I would question the validity, thank you, of not having that done.
Yeah, that is what we will be doing when we bring forward next year's capital programme, but it applies to the point you are making, is clearly if there are health and safety issues, we will put them in the capital programme and we will have discussions with you.
And I appreciate that. My concern is, obviously, remedial works is there, but we've got to do the inspections. We can't not do the inspections because I would have thought we have a legal duty to check our bridges. I'm just concerned that that's been highlighted to be put on hold.
Might be that they have a budget within the revenue budget from which they finance that. I will have to come back to you on that, but
okay,
the general point.
Super, thank you.
Just before I come in with a question of my own, anyone else want to ask any questions?
No, thank
okay. It's been excellent. I've enjoyed chairing this section so far with all the questions that have been asked. Of all the questions I prepared, only one hasn't been asked by everyone. So I just want to return us to page 19, 3.36. I know that there's been questions asked about unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, but I just want to ask specifically about what is the substantial shortfall in funding and what's being done about it, because being in the position we are as Thurrock with everything that's going on with the finances, we have very regular contact with central government and they're very much aware of the situation we're in. So what representations have been made, what lobbying has been going on, because these are vulnerable children who need support, but as a borough in the mire that we are, we need support from the government to be able to support them.
The comment made in here is a national local government comment. So what's happening, it goes back to the colleague's earlier comment as well. Children's services are receiving pressures across the country, and I know there is some work which I think is Essex-wide, which is bringing together that picture, which I'm sure lobbying is going on to the LGA, etc. But it is a national issue. We are aware of it. We are looking at information from elsewhere. I'd have to come back to you on lobbying, etc.
Thank you very much. So, just before we go to recommendations, just double checking there's no more questions. Okay, we'll go.
Can I just ask one quick one?
Of course you
know,
can.
like
Please do.
when we are looking at the grant money that comes in, is there a way of even coding it so that we know that it's not council money, it's money that we've received into grants? Is there a way of doing that, or is that just asking too much for it to be simple for us people that are looking at it?
It will be possible to do that at a total level. It will be a big administrative task to do every individual project. But yes, we could certainly pull you. So the total spend is X of that, so much is general fund borrowing, so much is grant. But I really wouldn't want to do it at an individual scheme.
That would be really helpful. Thank you very
We'll
much.
do that. We should be able to do that for month 6 when the next one comes out.
Thank you. All the recommendations are for noting, but I still want to go through each one of them individually and allow comment on each of them, because although we're not an executive committee, it's important for accountability that anything we want to say is. So I'm going to read each one, and if anyone has anything to say, please indicate. If not, we'll just vote. Okay, so recommendation 1.1. The council notes the overall forecast. Sorry? Oh, sorry. That committee note the overall forecast general fund outturn position for period 3 is an underspend of 1.036 million. Councillor Morris-Cook, you'd like to come in?
I would actually like something added to say the caveat is that the previous accounts of the previous years have not been signed off, so this is theoretically, although that's what we see, it's not a firm, it's dependent on the accounts being signed off.
Something that's subject to accounts being signed off, or what do you?
We need to do something because
I'm just looking to.
We don't know that that's a given.
Yeah.
Well, we could just put dependent on accounts being signed off, or previous year's accounts being signed off.
Yeah, I'm happy
Yeah.
with that.
So that committee note the overall forecast general fund outturn position for period 3 is an underspend of 1.036 million, subject to previous accounts being signed off. Yeah. Thanks for that, Councillor Morris-Cook. Can we all agree to that? Agreed. Thank you. 1.2.
I've got a point on there.
Okay, I'll read it out and then you can say your point. That committee note that directors with significant adverse variances will continue to review directorate budgets and identify mitigating actions to resolve the forecast pressure against the 2023 to 2024 budget. Councillor Morris-Cook.
I would just like to, it to be added that we would like that to be shown in future, what the mitigation is, what the figures are and what they've achieved to date on those mitigated figures.
So could we add something about, at the end of 2023-24 budget, that this is reported at future?
We have sight of what the mitigated actions are, just as a top line for each of the directorates. Yeah. Like, as I said, for public realm, it's 474,000. That has been identified. 472 has been achieved thus far, because they've got a potential shortfall of 345. So they're over delivering on what they are. But I think it would be really helpful to have that identified through the directorates.
And Councillor Gledhill, you'd like to come in?
Yeah, this is something that used to go to on the cabinet report of underspends or underperformance or whatever, and this is why, and this is what we're doing. So this probably already exists. It's just about not keeping it solely to cabinet, bringing it down to our level.
It does exist in the analysis. If I may, what is missing is any thoughts colleagues have when they are looking at period 3 as to how they will seek to mitigate it. So the what's happening at the moment is in there because it shows you in the underspends what might be to come with a period 6. So what we can ask is colleagues, what areas are you looking at? We won't have any numbers on them because that period won't have happened, but we can say colleagues intend to investigate A, B and C. If that's helpful.
Should we add on the end about this will be these mitigating factors are reported at committee or something like that? Yeah. Okay. So can we agree? Recommendation 1.2, but with the added section about these mitigating factors will be brought to committee. Okay. Thank you. 1.3, that committee note the potential risks to the position listed noted in section 4 and the following specific risks noted within the report. A, there are an ongoing assessment of the investment portfolio values which need to be reflected on an ongoing basis with the next update scheduled for quarter 2. B, the requirement to change the accounting for cloud-based IT costs continues to be assessed in both the current and prior years and is likely to have a material short-term impact. And C, there are ongoing wider financial accounting assessments related to prior periods which may also need to be considered. Can we agree? Agreed? Okay, 1.4. That committee note the HRA, the DSG and public health project to deliver the budget within the existing funding envelopes. Agreed. 1.5. That committee note and comment on the capital programme, the current projected slippage of 7.46 million and the impact of MRP. Agreed. And 1.6. That committee note that the position will remain provisional as further substantive work is undertaken, notably in preparation of historic accounts which could have an impact on current or future years. Agreed. As long as I don't have to reread it, I don't mind. Okay. Thank you very much. We now move on to the next item, which is the report of the Cabinet Member for Finance, HR and Payroll / Financial Strategy updating to follow. So it followed and it's here. So Councillor Snell, we throw it open to you. Thanks for coming and we're looking forward to your report and to the subsequent questions.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm not going to make the report very long because obviously it's in front of us and it's a very long report. But basically it details what we've been doing pretty much over the past year and where we're headed and where we're at right now. So the three main areas are the financial strategy, which we're developing, which didn't exist before. We're divesting of our investments, which is what we've been speaking about earlier, and basically putting in management structures for our entire financial strategy moving forwards. To be honest, I don't think I should go much further than that, because I think questions would probably be more valuable. So I'll leave that there, if I may, and open it up for questions straight away.
Thank you. And as with the previous item, unlimited questions. If you have the floor, please just continue till you've finished your questions, and don't apologise for asking lots of questions. I've seen Councillor Polly's hand is up first, so I will go to Councillor Polly.
Thank you very much for presenting the report. And again, as always, we know the background work that has gone into this. The officers, especially under the pressures that they're under, do a great job in presenting these reports. So, but some of the terminology in that I've got to get used to, so just bear with, please. So on 4.15, sorry, I haven't got any page numbers. I can't direct you on page numbers.
There's
sorry.
no page numbers anyway, don't worry.
4.15, it is recommended that an indicative hurdle rate of 12% is set for investment yield to return, with anything yielding less than being put forward for sale, subject to the detail of the individual investment. Why is that recommended? Why is the 12% relevant? And what is the PWLB rate? Sorry, just so that I'm clear. Thank you.
That's right, and thank you, Councillor Polly. Be under no illusion, but when I first took on this portfolio, that I too was completely baffled by a lot of the acronyms and the terminology of the thing. But you do get used to it after a while. So it's, and I have to concur as well that the team's put on an extremely great amount of work. I mean, honestly, it's been changing so rapidly, and how these guys have managed to keep up with it all and produce work to this quality. It's just a credit to the organisation, really. They've done very, very well. But getting to your question, so capital investments, obviously, we've got to deal with those, and the MRP that we put against those is 5%. So that's what we have to pay down on the asset as it sort of matures. But because we're now having to borrow through the Public Works Loan Board, their interest rate is around about 7%. So basically, if you add those two together, that gives an indicative rate of 12%. So that's what it's costing us to hold that asset. So what we're looking for is an asset is actually returning more than 12%, then we can retain that asset, given considerations. But if it's lower than that, 12%, then we should look at that very closely and consider that for divestment, basically. So that's the rate. So 12% is, I mean, that will change from time to time because obviously interest rates change. So that will, fluctuate, and we will look at each individual case as it comes up and apply the figures that are applicable at that time. But as an indicative rate for now, 12% is reasonable. So that's where we're going with that.
Thank you. So it's effectively a methodology in assessing.
Does it work as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a use it a bit like a snapshot. So it's like, is it returning 12%? And if it's returning 12% or more, actually I'll say if it's returning 12%, that's borderline. But if it's returning more than 12% as an asset of the council, then that's we can look at that and think, well, okay, we can retain that asset. If it's not meeting the 12% threshold, as I say, within boundaries, given the time we're looking at it, then that would be considered for divestment, because obviously it's costing us to hold that asset, and that's not what we need to be doing. Bearing in mind also that everything we're looking at now is coming under the envelope of the Section 114 notice. So, that is the focus of everything. We need to, get the borrowing down. We need to pay down debt. So, these are all methods basically to do exactly that.
Lovely. I understood that explanation, so that's really good. And then on 4.18, I think it's the fifth paragraph there. It's the fourth bullet point. a decision was taken to divest of the 103 million investment in CCLA. And again, I'm exposing my ignorance here. My understanding was that this was a safe long-term return on for CCLA, so I'm not quite sure why we've divested on that. If you could perhaps enlighten me, thank you.
So basically, you're right to an extent. It does return, but it's a very low return over a very long period of time. So bear in mind the imperative for right now is to divest of investments, so we get the income back into the council to say either pay down debt basically. So that's what we did that for. It's, you know, you're right, there was a small yield there, but not enough to retain it, and you know the 103 million is more valuable to us, to be frank.
Next up is Councillor Wall.
Thank you. I'll ask a couple of questions and then maybe come back in. So I suppose the glaring question is the savings of 18.2 million from the revenue budget for the next 2 years, and then 13.65 and 7.5 for the following 3 years. So we're not far from having to find this first 18.2 million, and you know, as the lead person for finance, I suppose it's you that should have the biggest, you know, whip out there, making sure that we do that Cabinet do look seriously at this, as well as, you know, getting everybody to work together. I just wonder how confident you are, because we've already had slippage. We was expecting to see this September, October. We're now October and told it'll be November, December. Before it even makes it anywhere near scrutiny. Just wonder how confident you are that we are going to meet this without any embarrassment in February.
Thank you, Councillor Worrell. I think I'm right in saying we're actually pretty close to the 18.2 million for this year already. And we've identified, I think it's 7.5 million for next year. Is that right, Steve? Is that?
Fraction no less, but
It's that kind of money for next year. So, in terms of confidence, I think, you know, we're nearly there this year. We're well on the way for next year as well. So it's doable. It's been done in other authorities. It's not easy, and it's not going to be easy. But to be fair, all the directorates are pulling together and doing their utmost to sort of find the savings. What I would say is what we said early doors was that, you know, we're going to set targets on these bases. Now, it's probably going to be the case that not every directorate will hit every monthly target. There's going to be some that's going to be a little bit slippy some month, but as long as they're recovering at the month after, then that's okay, the period after. So, you know, we're not expecting everybody to hit their targets every single month, because that's not the way these things work. You know, some people can find savings quite quickly, others it might take a little bit more work and a little bit more time. But broadly speaking, we're on target, and yeah, I have confidence that, you know, we will hit those targets as and when they're due to be hit.
Thank you.
Can I just come
Yeah,
in?
of course you can.
Go on, Councillor Morris-Cook, then we'll go back to Councillor Wall.
I just want to clarify what I think you've just said to me, that we're confident that we'll get the 18.2 million for this outturn. What we were talking about is the budget setting process for next year. And from what I heard you say, that there's 7 million around that's been identified, which to me leaves 11 million up in the air. And yet we were expecting to see what potential budget savings were around now, and we were told possibly November. But if you're saying 7, it's not even 50, it's about 45% of what we're going to need. So we're not near. Well, you're not near presenting what you are intending to put as a balanced budget for next year.
I refute that, actually, a bit, because, you know, yes, exactly, but bear in mind that's next year. That's not, you know, we're already well on the way for next year as it is right now. We're in October, so we've nearly hit this year's. and we've started on next year's already. We've identified savings for next year already. So in terms of a budget, you know, the budget, the 7 million savings are after this year's budget, in effect. This comes in next year after the budget. It's the 18.2 for this year, which will be part of the budget making for the next financial year. Which
you've totally confused me now.
So the 18.2 million savings for this year.
Yes.
Okay, so that's going to go.
You've got them in the bank.
Yeah, we've got that.
Pretty much, we're virtually there now. So
that's the budget.
So in terms of budget setting for the following year,
the next year, yeah.
so we've already identified savings. We don't forget we've got all of the next financial year to make those savings. So already we've identified circa 6 to 7 million pounds already of the savings for the following year. Is that correct, Steve?
Yeah, perhaps if I just
Yeah.
add to. May I just add, I think so Councillor Snell is absolutely correct, and it might just be the year references, so we're very well on the way towards 24-25's 18 million. As Councillor Snell says, another 5 or 6 million towards 25-26. I think it's just the years that we're getting a bit confused.
And that is my error. Yes, I do apologise. That is, of course, what I meant, but I didn't say that, did I? No, I do apologise.
Right, thank you. No, thank you. No, I welcome that because, like, obviously we've got our scrutinies and our, you know, and our cabinet, shadow cabinets coming up where we'll have all of this to look at. So I'm pleased that we've got that you envisage that we've got that to be presented to us in the next few weeks. So thank you very much for that. The next one I wanted to talk about was on financial management. And it says that we're going to generate at least 150 million in capital receipts and pay this down to debt. Are we doing okay with this? Any slippage? Are we okay for this?
I'm not up to date with those figures exactly myself, but I think Steve can probably answer you better on that one.
The 150 million, we are in advance, planning in advance of our target for this year. So the original target was 30 million a year for 5 years. We are anticipating that this year's will be overachieved, and we are also anticipating that next year's will be overachieved. And then colleagues are doing a review at the moment that will be reported on through FRB and Scrutiny in the future of what we describe as the tail. So the total is under review. The first 2 years are looking better than planned. Then colleagues will look at years 3, 4 and 5. There will be further reports on it.
Thank you.
Councillor, can I just bring in Councillor Gledhill, because he's indicated this about this specific thing that's just been said. Is that right, Councillor Gledhill? Yeah. And then I'll come straight back to you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for giving my... probably more for Steve, on pretty much on the same subject. So, up till a year ago, 2 years ago, I would receive regular updates. We sold this piece of land, it went up for X amount of money, we actually got X plus or X times, whatever. Would that be possible to have that back here as well? Because I think it's quite vital. If we're selling off 150 million assets, what we don't want to be doing is doing, what they call it, a fire sale, and end up losing a significant amount of money if we just wait for that period of time until we can maximise the income, because you don't want to be selling assets now if no one's going to build on them, because they're not going to be as worth as much now as they will be slightly in the future.
I think, as Councillor Snell referenced, what we do is we use the hurdle rate, so we don't just, I totally agree, it absolutely must not be a fire sale. Equally, we have a direction, an explicit direction, we have to pay down debt. But that's the purpose of the hurdle rate that's referenced in the paper, so we're not going to sell something where it's a better return and there is no risk. So that's the other point to bear in mind. And we do take papers to Cabinet that will be circulated and give the details of what's where. But the fundamental is we have to pay down this debt.
Back to Councillor Warren. Thank you for giving way just then. Oh, Councillor Snell first.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that obviously at last full council we had the issue with properties that were coming forward that weren't being disclosed, and that's going to be changing in future. So just to sort of reiterate that point, that you will in future be seeing, you know, the properties that are coming forward for sale.
Thank you. And my next question kind of follows on from that very nicely under governance. And under governance, it talks about the officer investment meeting and the investment advisory panel, and that it met in September, when it didn't actually meet in September. So the report is wrong. It needs to be updated and it needs to be clear. That the investment panel, which is where assets will be presented, and that committee will have a good deep dive into the divestments and, you know, and what's going on with our investments and divestments. And it keeps slipping. And this report says that it's happened, and it actually doesn't now meet. I think that we've agreed that it will meet at the end of October, so it's not met. And my concern is that without it meeting, there's only a few of us that actually know. So it's only, you know, this is about widening the amount of people that know exactly what's going on with the investments and making sure that the asset sales are right. So I'm a bit concerned that this report's almost it does indicate that it met in September, and it actually didn't meet in September, and it's not meeting to the end of October.
If I may comment, I think at the time it was written we were planning to meet in September, so we were going to meet, and I would hope that people would recognise what we have tried to put out to the committees in the depth of the paper here.
Thank you. No, only just to go back on that is that we were supposed to meet in June as well, and it got pushed to September, and September's been pushed to October, and now October we must make sure that it don't get pushed to November, because the stuff that is there is very, very important to this council's recovery.
Why don't we add it to, when we come to the work programme, why don't we put it on there that we want
an
update from that specific, because we've got a meeting in December, and I think if it's on the work programme, it has to be reported on. Councillor Morris-Cook and then Councillor Crowley.
Just something very similar.
Okay.
It's just getting into the really nitty-gritty. It's very similar to what Councillor Worrell said. There are several places in this report that refer to staff are going to a meeting in August. So my question is, when was this written? Because I would have expected it to have said staff met in August and this was the outcome, and that is on 4.120. It just seems a bit strange, to be honest. It just
I think it's referencing August and October, so it's partly a look forward. And
right, okay. It just makes it very confusing when you're reading it, and it's sort of saying staff are going to this or attending this in August and September, and we're now obviously beginning of October. Oh, sorry.
So, on the assets register, it's more of a question on that. I mean, obviously, it's about having all these reports are based on assets. So, how confident are we that we have a robust and up-to-date register? Because I think that has been an issue in the past.
You will find that 99% of council's asset registers are not totally complete, but colleagues are doing a lot of work which links back to the revenue budget monitor. We're having to invest in the asset service because it hasn't been invested in the past, so we're bringing in external people. So we are strengthening the asset register. You will always find that there are gaps in the council's asset register. There will be some where there aren't, but the vast majority will be. What we then do is we have an asset register for asset management, we have an asset register for the accounts, so one of the things we do is try and link the two together, and it acts as a double check. So I can't give you a categoric, the asset register is totally up to date. What I'm trying to say is that you'll find that in most places. That is not to excuse it, it's the reality of where councils are at the moment.
I heard we're bringing in people. So is that more consultants? Is that more expenses? Well, sorry, I understand, especially with something like that, it's a specialised subject and it's not something that we perhaps, and perhaps that's why ours isn't robust and up to date. Perhaps we didn't have those skills within the department at the time. But again, there is a nervousness about cost over outcome. What is the cost of bringing in those external experts to say, no, you haven't got any more assets, or oh, we found one here that's worth 20,000. Like, we found a garage in the back of Broxburn Drive, for example, and the cost of the actual consultant it was more than what the asset was worth.
It absolutely is not £6 million. It's a much smaller figure. I was just trying to find it in the monitors we were talking about. And your point's extremely pertinent, but remember, we are trying to sell £150 million worth of assets. So these are not consultants, they're agency staff, slight differential. They will cost money, but better that we spend some of that investment and we generate these significant capital receipts and we pay down the debt. And we save a relatively small figure in revenue, but we don't pay down the debt, which is costing this council an awful lot of money. It goes back to the earlier point, you will have to spend to save. You just have to in these circumstances.
If I may, is that one of the things that's come to light, and it's that almost every department in the council is vastly under-resourced in terms of manpower. So I know every year we talk about trying to reduce the spend on agency staff, but as every year turns up, we just need those extra people to come in to bring the expertise, as Steve just said, because we don't have it here. And right now we need all the help we can get to get these jobs and these tasks done to get this money in for us.
Councillor Morris-Cook.
Yeah, can I just take you to table 2, please, off of 4.66 after that? I understand that we had investments of over £1 billion, but am I absolutely reading this right, that the forecasted fees in order to try and recover from the divestments is £46.5 million?
Yes, is the short answer. But bear in mind that the two that are they're both in administration, and administration is expensive, and there's no getting away from that. I mean, the Toucan disposal, we're talking about hundreds of millions of pounds.
Yes, I understand.
And unfortunately for the JLG one, the way that company was structured, it was thousands of very small and medium loans. So it's become a very difficult process to get them out. So it's expensive again. So, yeah, I agree, it's a big figure, but that's the kind of figure you have to sort of put up with.
How confident are you that we are going to get a return on that and not just like £46.5 million back on the, when obviously they're in administration, so you're not going to get the full rate, are you? How confident are we that actually we're going to get a return on, because that's in effect an investment, isn't it? We're investing that £46.5 million to try and recover back. It's part of that £1.5 billion in effect. So how confident are we that we are going to get a return on that?
Yeah, I suppose to start off with, I'd say that if we weren't confident of getting a return, we wouldn't have gone down that process probably in the first place.
That is, I have to ask.
Yeah, of course you do, and I understand it entirely, and you're right to do so. We're already getting some money back in already from the JLG one. You know, on table 1 under 4.26. You know, we have seen expected funds coming back of 5.8 from ongoing transactions. And we've got 38 coming back from Toucan. So some of these are returning funds to us still. As I say, Toucan, we're expecting hundreds of millions. We don't know what the figure's going to be yet, but it's going to be a substantial sum coming back to the council. And with JLG, JCF, we expect at some point we're going to get the returns, which will be more than what we're spending to recover the money. But yeah, there will be a return there. What that will be, of course, it's difficult to tell at the moment. Yeah, it's going to be a few years down the line yet.
Anyone else like to come in?
No, I just wanted to say that probably for some people that have only just seen these reports, this will be the first time that they've probably seen that we had such a vast array of investments and how much it really was, and that some of them, you know, have only just come to light. So, and some of them, you know, like the Just Loans Group, you know, 93.6, and we're not going to get anywhere near that back. So, you know, I'm just really, really worried that, you know, there's a lot of these that whilst we're going to get money back, there's going to be significant losses across a lot of our investments.
I think you're right. I mean, Steve mentioned it earlier that, you know, even if we do the absolute best we can do and get the best value for the council, we're still not going to get all the investment money back. I mean, that's the reality. We are going to get significant funds back, and that's a kind of bittersweet story, really, because it's good news, the fact that, you know, it will improve the financial outlook, but it's not great news because it still leaves us with a huge debt that we've got to sort out. So there's no illusion on this side that, you know, this is going to solve all of our problems. It's not a panacea for anything. It's just that, you know, we can carry on looking back at what went wrong, but we've done that already. We've now got to concentrate on what we do now going forward. And this is the way we're trying to do it. Divestments, putting in firm structures so this sort of thing can't happen again. I mean, let's be honest. JLG, JCF. If any officer had come to any member and said, we're going to invest in a company like that, we would have all said no.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it was a crazy thing to do from the word go. But that's gone now. All we can do is deal with it. And that's what we're doing. As I say, you're right. We're not going to get everything back, but we're going to get back as much as we can. And we'll see where we are when it's all done. But it's going to take a few years.
Thank you. Again, great questions, and lots of things I was going to ask have been done, so that I won't repeat. I just want to ask perhaps a broader question, really, about the future, rather because everyone has gone into the nitty-gritty of the numbers really well. But on 3.8, it mentions 4 main reasons why we're in the state we are. But I think a fifth one should have been there, and it's not. You know, like you said, Councillor Sell, just going back to the past, it's about looking to the future. But there's no mention of the fact that it was the reduction of the central sort of government grant over time, which meant that we were getting less money in, and therefore the administration were therefore, bullet point number 1, over-reliant on an investment income. So has that been taken into account about how we can develop as a council in the future? Because everything's about we need to make sure our investments are better, we need to claw back money where we lost it. But no one's asked a fundamental question about, with less money coming in from central government, how do we make ourselves sustainable for the future? I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that as more of a longer-term strategic things. We've done the nitty-gritty on the numbers. I just wonder what your thoughts are.
That's an interesting question, Chair, and that's the sort of question that has been asked. We're myself and Councillor Warren on the Financial Recovery Board, and those are the questions we're asking. And part of the answer is that the government and DLUC have indeed identified that there is a sector-wide problem with this. I mean, you've seen the news recently, the amount of councils that have gone, and there are others that are on the brink of going. And by and large, it's all for the same reason. It's councils that were trying to fill the gap left by the retreating grant. So the government have got to grips with that themselves. They've got to get grips with that themselves. They've got to come up, at some point, they're going to have to come up with a solution that's going to solve these problems for many, many councils. Because I believe, you know, give it another year, there's going to be many councils that are in a similar position to us. There are already. But for us, we can't wait for that. We can't sit around and wait. We've got to do everything we set out to do in this paper. We've got to do as much of it as we can. Even when we do everything, we're still going to be left with a budget deficit. which we then have to, be concerned with. Can we do it? I think, given a lot of hard work and years, then we can get there. We can get to a stage where we can just about make this thing doable. We're lucky that I think we've got some things coming up on stream which might help. It won't be the panacea, but the Freeport, for example, will be a big boost to the economy locally. The Freeport in and of itself is not going to help us, but the industries that might come in hopefully around it could be beneficial. So I think there are potential ways out of this eventually, but not until after we've put in a lot of hard work first. And that's not this year, next year, the year after, you're sort of 5, 6, 7 years. But am I hopeful? Yes. Yes, I am. I think we can do it, but we've all got to knuckle down and get the job done. Because if we don't, if we start playing politics over silly things that we have done in the past, we've all done it, then we're only going to put ourselves back in the mire again. So we've got to all act like grown-ups. I know we don't often. I've been guilty of not acting like a grown-up from time to time down the years. And we've just got to do what we need to do. And that's difficult, it's hard, but we've got to do it regardless.
No, thank you for that honest answer, Councillor Snell. And I just think, I made the question more because I just think everything has been about the investment, because obviously the eye-watering figures and the lack of scrutiny and all that sort of stuff. But actually, if we go back, the main core that sort of started all this was the fact that the government grants were being reduced, and I think austerity was a concept in the early days, and local councils masked it by, in Thurrock's case, investments. In other councils, there's different ways in which lots of dipping into reserves, things like that. But ultimately, you've mentioned other councils that are starting to issue these notices. It really is a case of sort of chickens coming home to roost, I feel. And I was just really interested in your take on it, and I think very interested to hear what you said about it.
And I think it also relates back to something we were speaking about earlier, and that's the bringing in of outside advisors and experts to do things. We didn't do that. So we were making investments with insufficient knowledge, insufficient capacity to be able to make those investments, to actually know what we were doing properly. So if the money had been spent early on proper advice, multiple different advices, if you like, because, then it might have made a world of difference. There was an issue with MRP as well, which, again, there's been a few sort of backwards and forwards about the MRP, but if MRP had been applied, then certainly a lot of the later investments wouldn't have happened, because we wouldn't have been able to afford it. So there was lots of things that could have been done that wasn't, and that's a lot of the reason why we're doing what we're doing now. We've got a lot of things we've got to get done. We've got a lot of divestments to do. We've got a lot of reorganising to do. Let's get in the people that know how to do this, that can give good advice, so we get this done properly now. And let's not muck it up and do it try and do it ourselves. We haven't got that capacity. So that's why, yes, we've got a big spend right now, but as Steve mentioned earlier, that will drop off, and it will leave us hopefully in a much better place going forward.
Thank you very much. And just one last one, not related to a specific paragraph as such, but at the last full council, it was in one of the reports, it was mentioned that the commissioners were disappointed that timescales had slipped in terms of sort of debt recovery and all that sort of thing. Is there any? I don't know whether the timescale, whether this report didn't overlap with the council one, but is there anything to say about sort of the Commissioner's comment on timescales and things like that?
What can I say about the Commissioners? They're probably listening. They're probably listening. The Commissioners are very good at tasking the council officers with doing a lot of stuff, which the council officers go away and do. And then they come back and say, look, this is all we've done. And they go, oh, yeah, but you haven't done this, which they had in some. So there's a lot of, chasing all the time going on. But as I said earlier on, we said from day one that there is going to be some slippage on some directorates sometimes. Now, that doesn't mean it's a good thing, but it is expected. And what I'm not going to do is start chasing directors to say, look, you've not done this yet. I will if we go into the following period and it's worse or it's the same, because, the directive is if you've got slippage, then you've got to work to bring that and pull that back round. Now, they are doing that. So when I get the next report, the next quarter report, I expect to see a lot of that slippage is gone away. If it hasn't, then, we're having a chat. But it was never going to be the case that every target was going to be hit every single period, because that's not the real world. So we are monitoring it. We'll see how we get on. But, so far, so good. But, as I say, it's an ongoing process, and we'll see where we are at the next quarter.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Snell. Just before we move on to the recommendations, oh, sorry, I didn't see that, Councillor Potter. Go for it.
Sorry, Chair. Just, and this is a bit of a broad question, not specific to any of the agenda items, but you mentioned the free port. I feel Thurrock is probably the powerhouse of Essex in many ways, from industrial point of view, and as we all know, the majority of rates and things from industry goes to government rather than to Thurrock. Just looking at the way, if we are looking forward rather than looking behind us, are we at the table when it comes to the possibility of devolution within Essex to make sure that Thurrock is there to take any benefits that might come from a monetary implications where it might be? Or is that a question not for this forum?
No, that's a decent question. Devolution, I don't like that word too much. Devolution tends to mean that it's the complete opposite. It's giving more power to someone that's even more remote to what you were in the first place. So I'm not keen on that word. However, in terms of looking forward and trying to be proactive on things, we have a possibility of business rates pooling with Havering and Barking and Dagenham, which would mean we would retain more of our business rates. That's something we're actively looking at. We have expressed an interest in that, and if that comes off, then we will actually be retaining, I think it's a minimum just over £1 million, we think, if it goes ahead, and potentially it will grow as the economy benefits from that. So for that sort of thing, we are being proactive and trying to do what we can to make ourselves. You're right. We're not kind of the powerhouse of Essex. We are. There's no question of that. Essex is a lovely county, but we are the ones that drive it. That's always been the case. I think it's a pity sometimes they don't recognise that. And yeah, we'll have to see what benefits the Freeport truly brings. I mean, it's very early days just yet, but hopefully it will bring the benefits that it's been advertised to bring. But again, like everything else at the moment, we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, so there's a number of recommendations. So recommendation 2.1. I tell you what, are there any specific recommendations that you'd like to edit? If not, I'll just. There's none you want to change, no? Okay, so. Do I have to read them all? No.
I mean, the portfolio holder reports don't normally come with recommendations.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor?
I think we definitely welcome recommendation 6.
Director of Law and Government.
Yeah, no, we do, yeah. Okay, so unless there's any objections, should we just note them en masse?
Yeah.
Okay, so recommendations, all of them. Agreed?
So noted, Chair.
Thank you. The work programme. Before I invite other members to comment, our next meeting is in December, and based on the comments Councillor Morris Cook and Councillor Worrell made about the minutes, could we have a report on all the actions that have been promised as to where they are? You know, so we've got a log of it. Maybe that could be an item. And I'm wondering as well that in February we're due the portfolio holder report from Councillor Deb Arnold. I wonder if we could bring that forward, because we've had Councillor Snell's report on finance, and then it just seems logical that we then have Councillor Arnold's report on transformational change in governance. I think they go hand in hand. Without the finances, without the governments being sorted, then the finances will always end up going back to this. I just wondered what members of the committee sort of think about that.
Can I just ask, when are we going to discuss the proposals for the budget for next year?
No, we normally get January time. Not just fees and charges, the budget as well. That was the reason, one of the reasons we had to delay. Sorry, Chair, butting in. That's one of the reasons we had to delay full council last year, because it didn't go to the right committees first before then going back for approval.
Yeah, on that, we are hoping to arrange special sessions for all members towards the end of November. Dates haven't been set yet, but we are having sessions. Yeah, more meetings, I'm afraid, Councillor Worrell, but you'll love them. You love a good meeting. So yeah, so we're trying to get a meeting, at least one meeting in the diary before the end of November, so we can start the budget discussions then.
No, I'm waiting to do any of this.
Okay. Is everyone okay with me requesting that Councillor Arnold comes forward? Absolutely. Yeah, and an additional item to do with all the actions we're meant to have. Right.
And then, did you want feedback from?
Feedback on it at this meeting. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
That's going to be February now, because December. When do you need to do that meeting? They're meeting October. Oh, well, maybe we could add to the 7th of December.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll make it a longer meeting, but I'm happy to just roll till we're finished, you know. Okay. Councillor Morris, quickly, you want to indicate any other business?
Yes. What I'm about to say is I've felt extremely uncomfortable for the whole of this meeting, but have sat in the meeting because it's really important. And I do think that it's absolutely inappropriate that Councillor Gledhill is here, as he was the leader when we went through all of these things, and he is sitting here asking questions of now the current portfolio holder for finance, and I think it's totally inappropriate, and I really would like that noted. And I'm really been uncomfortable for the whole of this meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Morris Cook. Now, we will note it, but I think, like when we have a council meeting, and if someone's named, they have a right to reply. So, Councillor Gledhill.
Thank you, Chair. And actually, that same rule doesn't actually apply here, but thank you very much for the opportunity. Now, number one, that's an appointment of full council. Every single member that was at full council heard my name being called.
I wasn't there at that one.
It was heard that my name was called to be put on this particular committee, and every single member at the end of that particular item was given the opportunity to object. No objections were made. I find it highly, highly inappropriate that the process to make an objection was a couple of weeks ago.
I wasn't there.
It's not just you. Quite clearly, and this is not just you thinking this. I'm the same as every other elected member here. I'm here to hold the administration to account. That's what the purposes of overview and scrutiny is. There are pieces of information on there that I know the answers to. So, the other members have asked the questions anyway. am really surprised and shocked. I'm trying to keep a professional head on this one, that we get to the end of the meeting and people feel upset. The fact that
upset, I said irritated.
Irritated.
And, well, I felt very uncomfortable with the whole meeting.
So, as I say, yeah, I'm an elected member, same as the other 48 elected members. Yeah, my leader thought it was appropriate and right that I should come onto this committee. I was quite happy to accept that. I'm here. The opportunity was at full council, irrespective of people were there or not. That's where it sits.
Thank you, Councillor Gledhill. And like I said, it's all a matter of public record. We'll note comments and your reply as well. So, thank you. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's participated. I feel we've really asked some really detailed questions. Thank you, Councillor Snell, for attending and for providing all the answers you did. And I wish you all good evening, and we will have an even more packed agenda for December. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.